Welcome into another episode of Everything is Logistics, a podcast for the thinkers in freight. We are proudly presented by SPI Logistics, and I am your host, Blythe Brumleve. And speaking of SPI Logistics, we have one of the best people working at SPI with Anita Bassi. She is the VP of People and Operations over at SPI. So we're going to be talking all about what makes for a successful freight agent program in 2024 and beyond. So Anita, welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here, kind of.
Now, we were just talking before the show. You mentioned that you hate doing podcasts. They're a little nerve wracking. I totally get that. So let's just start off with sort of your job role and title. You recently
Sure.
upgraded, so it was formerly client experience, but now it's
Yeah.
VP of operations too. So tell us a little bit
Mhm.
about what that day-to-day role looks like for you.
Yeah, in terms of operations, it's exactly what you think. I'm handling the day-to-day operations of the organization. So my team handles any issues that come in. So if there's a carrier issue, a stolen load, an accident, or just an agent issue where they're having problems with their computers, the TMS software, we're the ones who are kind of coming in and troubleshooting, helping them. But we're also taking the lead when it comes to hostage loads, a carrier not being happy, any complaints coming in. So although I focus primarily on the agent side of things, we handle quite a bit of the operations, and that includes like carrier satisfaction and those relationships. So it just seemed like a natural progression to change my title and role and really take on operations altogether.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
think
been great.
anyone who's met you in person knows that you are just. I joke to Mike Mikulik, who also works for SBI. He's been a former guest on the show for anybody who's listening that may want to check out those episodes as well. But I joked around to Mike that I was like, Anita scares the shit out of me because she's so badass, and I don't. I was like, I have to make sure that I'm on my P's and Q's when I'm around her. So this is if you're a
No.
little nervous, and I'm a little nervous too because I was like, I got to make sure this interview is right.
I feel like I'm harmless, but I get that sometimes. I'm just like, I'm like a big teddy bear because I look kind of like scary. I have that resting face, but I'm actually quite friendly and nice. I'm very kind.
Yes, you definitely are, but you're also a woman in this industry that you want to impress. So I say that as like a full on like
Oh, I
I want to
appreciate
make Anita proud because I feel like if I make Anita proud, then everybody else will be okay too. And so let's make sure that
it.
we come with
Thanks,
it.
White.
And
That's great.
now,
Yeah.
what I thought was really interesting, because I also told you before we started recording that I was listening to your conversation, Trey Griggs of Standing Out
Yeah.
Show, which was a great interview and a conversation that you guys had as well. But what I thought was
Mhm.
really fascinating is that before you ever joined SPI, you grew up in the trucking industry. Your dad owned a trucking company. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes, he did. So he started off as a truck driver. Since I can remember, like probably as a toddler. So he was driving a truck like in town, and then he kind of moved to highway, then he moved back into town. Eventually, the company he's working with, who by the way is like a fabulous trucking organization here, ended up having to close shop, because I think it was during one of the recessions. And so at that time, he took the leap and opened up his own trucking company. But so then I was kind of immersed into the industry at that time, right? Like dispatching, understanding how the ports work, seeing how claims affected
Mm.
people, not just the administration of a claim, but how like the impact it has on real people, like the drivers, the trucking company, the customer relationship. Yeah, just all of it. I found it really dynamic. I just didn't think I would follow suit.
Yeah, that I would imagine that seeing it from that lens, because I think you mentioned during the podcast that there were you watched him late at night having to answer phone
Mhm.
calls and answer concerns of other
Yeah.
drivers and just seeing kind of like the
Yeah.
impact of like the work life balance that he had.
Mhm.
So when it came time to join the industry again, were you hesitant at all to join, or was it just a good sort of it felt right?
So when Joe reached out and we had the interview, I really, really liked Joe off the bat. I liked what his vision was for the organization. And I actually went to my dad to talk about like the industry and the company, and he recalled SPI because he had actually been a carrier for
Oh,
SPI.
nice.
So he started saying, "Look, is this person still there?" And I was like, "No, Dad, that was like 20 years ago." Um, but he had nothing but great things to say about SPI. So from that point of view, I wasn't hesitant. also when I originally started with SPI, I started more of an HR based role. So I did not have as much exposure to, I guess, like the opportunities or the problems that might arise in this industry. It was more to do with like the people actually in the office or agency offices, building up the culture. And the only really insight I had into like transportation in that particular role was claims management. So it was kind of like a soft introduction. And so I didn't find it stressful or, hesitant to come in. I was enjoying it. It was dynamic. And also 6 years ago, the industry was quite different from what it is now. You know, you weren't having all these insurance companies where you have problems with claims and things like that. So it was quite different. And I was not hesitant. I think it's just completely changed like the landscape of what we do in transportation or as a freight broker now.
And for folks who may not be aware, who is Joe and his relationship to the company?
Sure. So Joe Chandler is our president and our chief operating officer. And so that's who I report into. And he had been with the organization about 2 years when I joined. And he actually ended up bringing Mike, who's our VP of sales and marketing, and myself on. So that was the time that he kind of decided that, we needed to have more of an HR presence. And so that was my background. I came in on the HR side, but I had always been embedded within like an operations team. And so I had two roles I've always played. I've always kind of understood how does HR really impact the strategic vision of an organization and the bottom line. And so it was kind of a natural fit. And then as I kept working with the team here at SPI, I love the industry. I just found it so dynamic. Every day is different. It's very challenging. But also when you resolve a problem, it's so rewarding because there's so many players in the game, right? And so then I just kind of naturally progressed towards operations and that side of things. But
so
yeah.
For HR, you had mentioned this earlier that you still are heavily involved in HR, right now for SPI, and you just mentioned that it really impacts the bottom line. Can you kind of expand on that a little bit? How does because I think
Yeah.
for most folks they kind of know HR is like the department that you go and you report a problem to. But you mentioned
Yes.
how much it impacts the bottom line. I'd love for you to expand on that a little bit.
Yeah. And I think any any organization that wants to be successful really has to see the value in HR because we're not just those individuals you come to get like a write up from, or can we terminate this employee, or I want to have an event, so like, or like I don't know what to do, so give it to HR. But I think the important thing about it is that we are the ones selecting the individuals. We are the gatekeepers to who represents the organization. So having great HR leads to a successful bottom line because we bring on the talent that represents the company, who is aligned with your culture, your values, your mission. You train them, right? You get them on board and you put them into this perfect little package to hand off to operations. But in our situation as an organization, it's so nice that HR and ops are under one roof because now we have the people we bring on in client care, right? But they're also training our agents. So we're kind of doing it as an HR department. That really is an HR function training. And so when an agent onboards or a sub rep for an agency office onboards, we take them through the full training, we onboard them, and we help them with continuing training too when so things change. But also we understand the operations of the organization so we can act quickly when they have questions. We're not saying, hey, just hold on, let me talk to your operations manager or the ops coordinator. We can just answer those questions for them during training. We understand the industry ourselves, and we also understand how to be able to dispatch a qualified load or how to find what the proper rate would be. So aligning those two departments allows you to be profitable, I think.
No, that's a great breakdown, and it makes a ton of sense because you're not only balancing the employees that you have in the office, but you're balancing the freight agents that are coming into
Mm-hmm.
play. Because I think what makes SPI super unique compared to other freight agent programs is that you only have freight agents. You don't have an in-house brokerage team that almost I don't want to say can kind of steal freight away from the agents, but it's borrow might be the best
Yeah.
phrase.
Yeah.
Share might be a better phrase. Why the focus on, and maybe this, I'm not sure if you can answer this question for me, but I'm going to ask it anyways. But for the freight agents in particular, why the focus there when you could add an additional line of revenue with an in-house brokerage, but does that sort of muddy the waters too much?
I think it muddies the water, but I think as an organization, we've made a decision as to what our product is, and our product is service. And we are here to provide a great service. We are back office support. That is what we specialize in. And that's where we spend our resources and our people's training so we can provide this great service at the end of the day, right? If we were to bring in-house brokers, you're then deviating from kind of a service because now we're also having to bring on our customers.
Mm.
We're providing a product kind of, you know what I mean? So you're muddying the waters. You're also creating competition with your agency-based model. And I think it also becomes, who do you service? Do you service your in-house customers or do you service the agent's customers? And this keeps it so clean for us. And it's just something we enjoy doing. It's great having partners who know what they're doing. We don't have to become experts in every type of freight because our agents are experts in their customers' freight. But what we are experts in is understanding, how do we onboard? How do the systems work together? How do we integrate new tools for you so you can just focus on dispatching the freight, getting the customers? If there's a claim, we're experts in, filing that claim, resolving it for you, finding a way out of it. And even when it comes to like accidents, things like that, that's what I think we provide, like pride ourselves on, and it just gives us a competitive advantage, I guess, in comparison to other
Yeah,
brokers.
for sure. And let's get into a little bit of what that onboarding experience looks like. You mentioned, that the value of HR being able to sort of, train and onboard people and make sure that they're a cultural fit. Is that sort of the same approach to agents as well, making sure they're a cultural fit as well?
Yeah, and I think one thing we do strong here is that we work very closely with sales. So Mike and I have a great relationship. We're on the same page when it comes to identifying agents who are going to be onboarding. Him and his team do a great job of qualifying the agents because it's just like employees. Yeah, you're interviewing them, they're interviewing you too. And I think it's the same way for agents. Yes, they're interviewing us, but we're interviewing them as well. Do you fit our professional code of conduct? Do you have the ethics, the morals that we want? Does it make sense? Are you a fit for the culture that we've created and we try very hard to protect at SPI, right? So those are all things vetted through those conversations, and making sure that works out. But then before we even onboard, Mike's really great with us having calls with the prospective agent, demoing our system, making sure that there's a great fit, because what we don't want, and you don't want this in HR either, is turnover. We don't want the attrition to be high. So when we onboard agents, they don't leave, because I think we've given them a very real picture of what they're going to get at SPI, who the players are, who they'd be working with, what the system looks like, what we can truly offer. We try not to promise something that we can't back up. And that's the same thing on the employee side too.
Now, we've had Eze, who's in charge of IT over at SPI, and he was talking about sort of the technical aspect of onboarding a new
Mhm.
agent and being able to connect to all of their different systems. What about on the operations side of things? What does that onboarding experience look like? Does I guess take me from the agent signing on the bottom line to getting
Yeah.
fully up and running with SPI?
Yeah, so once we've demoed our TMS and we've decided it's a fit, like basically the onboarding process starts from setting up an agency agreement, which by the way we have no non-compete, so and that's always a win, right? Yeah, so we set up the agency agreement. We schedule a day within like, it's usually typically 24 to 48 hours depending on the agent's availability, and if they're actively working and it's hard to onboard during work hours, then we'll make our team, reach out and they'll coordinate it maybe an after hours session. So we're really flexible that way. But basically within 24 to 48 hours, they'll be doing an actual training session. So we have 2 training sessions that they'll go through, not just with our TMS, but all of our load boards, our company intranet, any kind of tools and technology that we have is kind of what we spend the majority of the 2 days training on. And then we provide them support with getting their customers onboarding, making sure we have the credit agreement signed. So we introduce them to AR. We also introduce them to AP at that time. So explaining, what are the payment terms that their carriers can be looking for, because we also want to make sure that they understand our procedures so they can relay the correct information to their carriers and to their customers. And if they have carriers that they want to onboard, we typically try to get that onboarded before. So put them through our carrier vetting process to make sure there's not going to be any issues. And just working with getting them all set up for their go live date of, dispatching their first load within our system.
How long does that process typically take? It sounds like it's relatively short.
It's pretty quick. I would say 1 to 3
Oh,
days.
nice.
They're up and running. Yeah,
Wow. I
we actually
I thought you were going to say like 1 to 3 months. That's what I would have assumed. Just learning any kind of new technology. But I guess if they can take all of their current technology with them wherever they go and make
yeah,
upgrades where needed, then the onboarding
yeah.
process can be a lot quicker than that.
Yeah, and like with our company intranet, we also have a lot of resources. So we have training videos for all of like our TMS. So, even though we'll take them through training, we provide them additional resources. So if they don't want to talk to us on the phone, they don't want to call us and they want just a couple quick questions after training, like how they're booking their load or a freight plan, we have all the video resources for that too. So they can go step by step, they're narrated by us so they can completely understand how to get things done. So it's quite efficient that way, but we have a great like carrier and client care setup team who's available all the time. We have after hours support. So we run 24/7 basically.
There was one point in the conversation with Trey that you were talking about a new agent that you wanted to help, or maybe he was an existing agent and he was onboarding a new customer, I believe, but he didn't know how to use Teams. And you guys actually set up a training session and got Teams set up for him so he could land that new customer. Is that accurate?
Yes, that is. So we do that with like Zoom or when they have these like online meetings, like because we do have agents who are not as comfortable with tech. So a lot of the times we will jump on and we'll do like ConnectWise and we'll show them how to get it done and set up, or they might get locked out of their email or they might get hacked. And so it's us also going in and like having our IT team go in and support them and doing a check and doing whatever we can to get them up and running quickly as possible. Just going that extra mile because I think people appreciate when you actually genuinely care about them, and I think we do. So
Yeah, because you were listing all of the things that SPI provides, and it was claims, HR, day-to-day ops, insurance, carrier setup and vetting, AP, payroll, training, fraud training, or fraud help. That's a lot
yeah,
of stuff that I mean, it's essentially the entire back office, right?
we're 100% back office support, and again, that comes back to we have decided this is our service and we are going to be great at it. So, you know, everything that they need, it's a one-stop shop, and we're there for them.
Yeah, because I think you had mentioned too that you're almost in the client services business where your agents are
Mhm.
your clients, and as long as you're giving
Yeah.
them everything they need, then hopefully they don't have any reason to leave.
Yes, exactly. And I think, that's where that model is different again because it's like they're partners, but they're also
Mm.
clients, right? So, we might go with them to pitch their customer on a new lane or a new product or a new sale, right? But at the same time, they are also our customers. So it's making sure that we provide the same service to them that we encourage them to provide to their customers. So it's kind of just a round effect there.
So, I imagine during the onboarding process, there's going to be some concerns, there's going to be some questions, there's maybe some objections or obstacles that you have to overcome. What are some examples of maybe some of the more common ones that SPI helps them to resolve to speed up the onboarding process?
Yeah, so typically this is ironed out before they actually
Mm.
onboard. It's usually during like the prospecting phase. And so if there's any questions, we usually put them in touch with the right department to answer those questions. But for example, I would say the most two common ones that we deal with are claims questions, what our role is going to be in claims, because a lot of agents who come to us have had a lot of issues with their claims
Mm.
department. So not enough support, not helping them file the claim, not giving them direction. So those are usually the biggest hesitations, or they've been
Mm.
burned. They've had claims that aren't able to get settled, but their agency doesn't go the extra mile to get legal involved or to pursue the claim. They just accept it maybe at the
Mm.
denial phase and not appealing. Or they've had to pay out of pocket for ones that they weren't negligent in. There's no fault of their own. There's no shared cost. So those are the questions that typically come up with claims. And so, where we explain our process and how it works, and we fully take ownership of the claims in terms of the administration. So that's kind of one of the areas that could be a hesitation. They're looking for a new agency who can better support them in that side of things. And then the other question lately that's coming up is carrier
Mm.
vetting. And I would say that's because of the fraud. And it kind of goes hand in hand with the claims and the stolen loads and the double brokered loads. And so, a lot of the new agents are now asking, hey, what are your carrier vetting processes? What system are you using? What are you doing internally? And so that's kind of something we've been working with. And, I think we have a great carrier vetting process. We have a great carrier vetting tool with Highways. So I think we can alleviate a lot of those concerns with just a quick conversation.
Yeah, it almost sounds like they're looking for a partner as well in order to help
Yeah.
them get through some of these more difficult problems so they can focus more on their customer relationships and
Yeah.
selling more freight while the back office things and things that could really impact their business. I mean, one claim could maybe put, some companies out of business.
Yeah, or you could lose the customer. And some agents only have like one particular customer. So when they're coming to you and they're saying, hey, like, I had 3 claims back to back. We had poor carrier vetting processes. We're on our last strike here now with this customer. What do we do? What are your processes? So those things are really important to agents as we go into this like uncharted territory right now. And that's what we're
And
seeing.
so what other you mentioned highway, what are some other ways that you're helping with carrier vetting and fraud prevention?
Yeah, we have our own internal systems too. So, we review Carrier 401, we have Carrier Sure, we're using Highway. And then we have other things within the internal TMS that we've created to just have an internal carrier scorecard. So making sure we're checking also FMCSA changes to contact information. So there's a lot of good resources out there. And a lot of them aren't that expensive, like Carrier Assure or having access to 401, but just doing your due diligence. And as an industry, I think we have to encourage everybody to get on these platforms. And I think that's the only way you're going to be able to weed out, these scammers and these fraudsters and the double brokering. But if we can encourage everybody to do even one system, I think we can help a lot. And then, when you're going to these conferences, it's great. So Mark Funk, our director of carrier procurement, he went to a carrier conference and he actually ended up creating broker chain. So, we can talk to each other and figure out best practices, but just communicating with each other is important.
And it almost sounds like some of these issues are catalysts for why a freight agent would leave somewhere else
Mhm.
and then come and join
Yeah.
SPI. Is that a safe assumption that carrier vetting is one of those top reasons?
Yes, carrier vetting, which leads to, sizable claims. So, of course, that's a big, big one.
What are some other ones? Do you know any offhand?
I think those are the two challenges that we've seen. And prior to carrier vetting, it was mostly claims questions that we had or lack of support. So, not having a department like the client care or the carrier setup team that was responsive, delayed times, taking an hour, 2 hours to respond to an email. So, responsiveness is a huge thing, obviously, in this industry. And so, agents coming without that lack of support are going to be looking for a new home.
Now, we had talked briefly about, having maybe an in-house brokerage is almost a little bit of
Mhm.
competition to a freight agent
Yeah.
program. But what about the freight agents themselves? Because I get the impression, and I've talked to a few of the different agents with SBI, that a lot of these freight agents are friends. Like they're not seeing each other as competition. Is that by design within the HR part of the program with us?
Within
Yeah.
SPI? Yes, within SPI, they're friends. I was gonna say, I thought you meant
Oh.
externally. I was like, "What?" But yeah, yeah, definitely within SPI. It's actually I love it. I think that we've just created this culture of like a family. And so, when we have our annual conference, they're sharing ideas. They call other agents to get help or to recover loads or sharing customer accounts that, maybe are too big for them to take on by themselves. Covering for vacation time. They have great friendships. So it's become like a network, but it's also having respect for everybody's boundaries when it comes to like this is their client. But again, yes, they are very resourceful and sharing and helpful, and it can be tough in this industry when you maybe only have enough business to have yourself and not have employees. So creating networking relationships within the company to allow yourself to take a vacation is great.
I didn't even think about that aspect because for a lot of freight agents, it's a one person operation. And so then they have
Mhm.
the help, of course, of SPI. But if you want to take that vacation, you probably can't with other programs. But with SPI, you can actually trust that the other freight agents within the system are going to be able to help you out as well to enjoy a little downtime.
Yeah, and like we don't try to interfere too much in that part of it, but when they have those conferences, that is the opportunity to network and create those relationships. And especially since we have very little attrition, they see these people over and over, and you begin to trust them and you create those relationships. And it is important because I think about my dad who never really took a vacation because he was running the company on his own, and it can be tiring, and it can be, it's like a burnout factor there too. So having people that you can rely on and count as friends is really important, and we see those relationships for sure in SPI, and it's neat.
And there was a previous guest on the pod, in case anybody wants to listen to it, is Tynan, and he actually is a freight agent for SPI, but he is working underneath another freight agent that's also part of SPI. So this was a pathway for him to
Yeah.
enter the industry and then start to build his book of business. Is that a common program that is offered, or is it more like a case by case basis for SPI?
Yeah, that's a case by case. Like we're very open to helping, like, I'll do interviews for agency offices when they want us to jump on, or like they're hiring like a higher level position when it comes to sales. Our team is totally willing to help and do interviews, and give our opinions and our feedback because, again, they might not be experts in HR, but we can do that for them. And then we're also keen to help and train. So, if there's situations that come up like Tynan's, yes, we're completely hands-on to help and train them and then try to find a solution. But that's definitely a case by case. It's not like a regular service we
Yeah,
offer.
because especially with the sponsorship and the relationship that we have with SPI, like we know that you need a book of business, you need to be established in order to be a good fit for SPI. But there
Yes.
are case by cases where you can maybe impress Anita with your skills and then get onboarded with SPI.
Just sneak them in there.
Because as you were talking and you were mentioning that sometimes you join, other calls, I would be having you interview or helping me interview everyone because I know that you would be able to catch something that I wouldn't be able to catch. So kudos to those freight agents that are putting the Anita power behind their hiring. Now, we had also talked. I went to my first rendezvous, SPI
Yeah.
rendezvous annual conference that you guys have. I believe the way you approach it is you have one in Vancouver, then one in a U.S. city, and then back to Vancouver, and then another U.S. city. Is that the right fluctuation?
That is.
And
We're just in heavy planning right now for 2024. So,
it's going to be in Nashville for this year. It's usually around like April,
yeah,
May timeline. What all goes
yeah,
into planning an event like this?
like a small wedding. So, it's, I get like, hot sweats thinking about it now. It's like a small wedding, to be honest. There's just so much care and love that goes into this conference. And even though where I started in this company to where I am now, I can't let it go because there's so much happiness that comes from it, from the agents and how much they enjoy it. And so I just want to make sure it's really perfect for them. And it's a time for us to appreciate and thank them for their business as well. So, we try to make it educational, that we have speakers come out, we have the executive basically presenting on topics that are important, that are happening, having some breakout sessions. But like really the heart and soul of it is to network and to have fun. And it's like a couple of days for them to go out and get to meet other people who are in this industry where they might not get the time to do that, right? They may not have time to go to conferences. So they get to come out and have fun and let loose, but also learn and meet with, members of the leadership team, but also with all of our staff. So it's just a great event overall, but that's kind of the purpose of
That's
it.
I didn't even really think about the fact that freight agents are kind of a lot like drivers, where they don't really
Mhm.
have that office community. They have to
Yeah.
go and they're working remotely for most of the time. And so for
Mhm.
this event, it probably is one of the few occasions out of the year that they get to network with other like-minded individuals who are going through the same like trials and tribulations that they are. I would imagine that
Mhm.
the education being shared is really top notch at each one of these events.
Yeah, and I think, and that's like, again, this is like the opportunity where we share everything that's going on. So it's great. And this year is amazing. I think we only have like 4 or 5 agents not attending, and the rest are all coming. So it just kind of speaks to the volume of like that family feel that we have and the fact that everyone is really excited to come. But yeah, they share a lot, they learn a lot. And we have some great speakers this year. We're going to be focusing more on like the carrier vetting side of things, but because again, it's like the issue at mind right now.
Yeah,
So
it's like
it should be good.
the nature of the industry. Fraud is just the incredible explosion in it. I think it was
Mhm.
57% of cargo crime in
Yeah.
general, not even carrier fraud or impersonation or anything like that, but cargo crime itself was up 57% year over year. I saw that stat that was just released yesterday, which is just insane to think
And
about.
that's underreported too, right? Like that's
Yeah.
underreported. Think about like, so yeah, we have access to Cargo now, we're reporting it, but a lot of organizations don't have access to that because you have to be a member, you have to pay for it. So a lot of them don't report it. A lot of this information is just like that data is just left
Yeah.
there. So if we think it's 57, imagine what it really is.
So what else is on? I mean, I know SBI's freight agent program is best in biz, but how do you decide what to add to it? Like, what are some of maybe some additions that you're going to have in 2024 that might complement the freight agent program, or do you have it kind of on lock?
I feel like we have it unlocked. Like we are introducing a couple new tools that I'm not privy to speak to as of yet that we're going to be announcing at
Oh, nice.
Rendezvous. So we're always looking for new technologies. We're always looking for new items that are going to make our agents' lives easier or more efficient or automate the process. The only difference for us is even if we automate the process on our end, is we don't let go of our
Hmm.
staff. We want these tools to better the life of our staff to help our agents who can then in return help their customers. But yeah, I think in terms of what we might focus on, that's maybe a Mike question for sales. I'll leave that to him. I'll put him in the hot seat.
Yes, see, we got to get him back on the show so he can talk about, some of
Yeah.
these things and some new additions to the program. Now, before we kind of wrap up, what advice would you give to somebody who is maybe already a freight agent and is thinking about
Mhm.
making the jump?
Yeah. And like, do you mean a freight agent as an employee?
Or just in general, just a freight agent, maybe they're with another company right now and they're thinking about making the jump to SBI. What kind of advice would you give to them to make sure that all their ducks are kind of in a row before they make that leap?
Yeah, I think, well, one, there has to be a catalyst for the reason why they want to leave, right? So I think they really need to identify that and see, are they getting what they're paying for? Because it being a part of a brokerage, like any other industry, like real estate, whatever, you're paying to be a part of that brokerage, right? So are you getting the bang for your buck? Are you getting the support? Are you feeling protected? And I think that's a big one coming into 2024 because shippers understand that loads are being
Mhm.
stolen. They also want to know, what are you doing to protect my load? Are you educated in that area? Is your brokerage informing you? Are they on top of it? Do they have good processes? Do they have the technology to move forward in 2024? And I think that's a big one that people who have not invested in technology to this point, especially on the carrier vetting process, are going to be behind. And so, as a freight broker, I think you have to real assessment as to what your system is capable of. And what it's not capable of, because if it's not capable of giving your carriers a scoring, it's not capable of limiting loads or finding out is there associations or whatever the insights or risks might be to that carrier, you're going to be in trouble, and you're going to be at high risk of losing that customer. So if you're not prepared and your agency is not prepared, I think that's a big catalyst for change. And at SPI, we are ready and we can help you out. So
All right.
my little sell
No,
there.
that was a great answer because I was just writing that down that that's going to be we have a new editing technique for, I guess, some behind the scenes knowledge, but we have a new editing technique for our videos is where we're taking a good pull quote from the conversation to put
Yeah.
at the front of the conversation, kind of reel
Oh,
people
okay.
in. So that was the one. So that's what I just wrote down. So in case anyone is listening and they want to kind of, I guess, see how this sausage is made, I guess this is a terrible
Yes.
pun. But Anita, anything else that you think is important to mention that we haven't already talked about?
No, I don't. I think at the end of the day, I know the industry, I talk to some for agents and I feel for them that have been in the industry for 15, 20 years and they've gone their entire career without any problems, any issues. And now they're dealing with double broker loads or us coming in saying, hey, we got to tighten, this process or that. Or they're like, but why? We've never had an issue. And it's just a lot of change, and I just want people to hang in there. And I think that even though it might not feel fun right now because we're combating so much crime, I'll get back there. And it is a fun industry to be part of, and the people who work for it are amazing. So just hang in and enjoy, and it's a great ride.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like any industry. The more digital tools you add, the easier it is for everyone, but it's also the easier it is for the fraudulent players as well. So we got to kind of, keep up with the times in order to protect ourselves and our business and our customers. So Anita,
I
this
agree.
was awesome. This was great. Where
Thank
can folks
you.
follow you? Sign up for SBI's freight agent program or, book a meeting, any of that cool stuff.
Yeah, I think I'm easily accessible by email. I'm like total millennial. I hate talking on the phone. So
Same.
like just email me. But A Bassi at SPI3PL.com. You can connect with me on LinkedIn as well. Otherwise, you can go to our website and there is a quick, you're interested, send in your information, and they'll come over to our sales team and they'll get in touch with us as well. So,
Well, this was awesome. Not scary at all. Great conversation and a ton of value. So what more can we ask for?
thanks so much, Blythe. It was fun.
Absolutely.
A lot better than I thought,
Yeah,
right?
you did. You knocked it out of the park.
Awesome. Thank you.